call the December meeting to order. Roll call?
Neil Johnson,
Yes.
Greg Collier,
Yes.
Steve Smith,
Here.
Schnover,
Here.
Joel Gardner,
Present.
Barker, Thomason.
We'll have the minutes at the next meeting, so we'll move on to comments from the audience. No comments. So Daniel is on Zoom, I believe. Do you have an update?
Yes,
for
can
us?
you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, just two things to go over. Looking at November's numbers, they were relatively good considering the Thanksgiving holiday. Matching, actually just slightly exceeding last year's numbers by about 1,000 gallons on jet. So we're real happy to see that. A lot of foot traffic in and out of the airport as well. A lot of people still looking for a restaurant continually week by week. And then something I've implemented is that we are requiring masks for everybody who enters the FBO, trying to enforce that. With a little bit of luck, a lot of people are reluctant to do it, but most people are happy to do it, and they already were. So really not much of a challenge there. This last week so far has been down in operations by about half of what last year was. So it'll be interesting to see what the rest of December holds as far as any COVID cases restricting any operations coming in and out of the airport. But like I said, November was really good. So hopefully we'll pick back up just before Christmas and just after. And that is all I have.
Okay, anybody got any questions?
Did you notice anything from football games? Razorback football games?
Football game traffic has been fairly good, offering incentives for aircraft to come up here or up to Springdale instead of to Fayetteville. That's paying off fairly well. So a few sales there. And starting to see some traffic coming in for the basketball games as well. We don't normally think about the basketball games, but we went ahead and extended our offer of free services for fuel purchases for the basketball games and making sure that we're staffed appropriately for that. So I was happy to see that last weekend. I think the game started at 7, basketball game did, and it went pretty well. We had a couple aircraft on the ramp. So hopefully we'll see that continue.
Any other questions? If not, is Ernest represented here by anybody? Okay. If he comes in, we'll go to him there. Laura?
All right, the localizer's up and running. Tower hasn't had any issues with it, so that's all good. With Jeff Mann, when he moved out, he left a bunch of equipment in the kitchen, like a bunch of sinks and things that are actually attached, but his attorney has requested that we give him a value on that to keep it in the restaurant and take that off of what he owes. So according to the equipment that is left in there, and of course it's a year and a half old and all used, but the retail value was $8,522.42 from what's in there. And so I don't know, Wyman suggested a value of possibly up to $6,000 credit for him. So that's.
Can you tell us how that balances out, what he owes and what your assessment of the equipment was and how that might balance out?
I believe if you gave him a $6,000 credit, it would leave him owing us like $1,300
Yeah, that sounds right.
in that area.
We're sure that $8,000 is stuff that he brought in that was not there before.
Yes.
And there's no money against it? No, nobody can come in and claim that he hasn't paid for it or anything?
Well, we wouldn't let him have it anyway. It's
Okay.
in the building.
Okay.
I mean, we can't we can't speak on the behalf of if it's paid for or not, but his attorney did send us the invoices.
He submitted us all the invoices, and then I have pictures of all of the equipment.
Okay. So,
So that's new, retail price.
Yes, what he paid, yes. Yes. $8,500 is what he paid to have all this stuff. Some of it includes installation fees and such too, so.
Well, doesn't restaurant equipment lose like 50% of its value as soon as it's taken out of the showroom? Yeah. I agree. 50% value?
yeah, I'm thinking more half. That was my thought.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and like I said, the majority of it is sinks, large sinks, and they're all plumbed in, and
All that stuff will stay for the next tenant. Don't need all
Right.
yeah, we had one large sink that the city owns, and then a little tiny small sink, and he put on a bunch of other ones out by the bar area in there, and
I visited with Ernest about this, but we didn't go too deep into it, but one question I have,
I don't know.
let's say we don't agree to lime anything. Can he come and take any of this out, or does it have to remain there anyway? The way I understood it, talking to Ernest, this is just, we are, out of the goodness of we're trying to go ahead and be fair, overly fair in this regard, as far as, apparently we don't have to do anything. But I think it's the right thing to do, I really do. And I know he's not been a good partner or anything in this, but it still adds value to our restaurant. And you think most of this stuff can be used or will be used by the next tenant?
It's all good stuff to make the restaurant even better than how we had it. So it's not anything specialty that it would take a special restaurant to operate. This is all stuff, anybody comes in for the restaurant will be able to use this product.
Excuse me just a minute, I just had an alarm go off. Okay. Sorry for that interruption, but any comments? Does everybody understand what we're talking about here? We're talking about
Yep.
roughly 6,000 even, and that goes against what's owed?
Yeah, what's owed, if y'all valued it at $6,000, that would leave roughly $1,300, $1,350 he would still be owing the city.
So you're saying 7,300 is what he owes?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what's before us.
I'd be willing to accept a 50% value, no more.
I'd make a motion to credit $4,000 towards the equipment left in there.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion second that we credit only 4,000, and I gotta take this or I'm gonna have police in my house. Just a second, hold on.
What's the likelihood that we're gonna get any more money out of this guy?
We'll look for professional comment for that.
I'm sorry, I apologize for coming in late. We had our office Christmas lunch today. We actually got a default judgment against him for the past due hangar rentals. So we've already got a judgment against him for that. It's just going to be a matter of trying to collect it.
Thank you.
The 2,160, I believe it is for the past due restaurant rent. So whatever you credit you give, my opinion is we should probably give it to the restaurant first, and then the remainder give to we've already got a judgment against, because we haven't even started collection on the restaurant part. So we've already got a judgment for the rest, so we can, whatever credit's not applied towards that, then we still have a mechanism to collect because we have a judgment. I don't know if anybody's here representing him or not, but
My fear is no matter what we do, we're not gonna collect any extra money out of it.
I don't know, but we're going to try. I mean, we've at least got to the 50-yard line by getting a judgment that's enforceable via garnishment, executions, things of that nature, so. Is there a motion and a second? Okay.
Further discussion on it.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud here that, if we allow him the $6,000 and we made him, but he has to pay the other $1,300 or $1,400 up front before we would give him the 6,000 credit. Be sure of, at least on paper, we break even. Otherwise, I'm afraid we're just not gonna get anything out of him. It's gonna be, if he doesn't have any money, it's gonna be a write-off. $4,000 is probably accurate on the value, but difference, I don't know if we'll ever collect. My thought was to make him give us a check for $1,700 or $1,300, wherever it is difference, and then allow him his 6,000 credit.
You're saying if he'll pay the 1,300 up front, then we'll allow the full amount?
Put a condition on the motion to allow him that much credit, that he'll be allowed that much credit at the time he pays the balance of the bill. What you're trying to get to?
I think I understand what you're saying, so I would amend my motion to say, if he pays the $1,300 up front, then we'll waive the additional $2,000.
And I'll second that again.
Okay,
That's just because of the fear, we're not gonna get
right. Okay, so the amended motion has a second. Any other comments? If not, roll call.
Johnson,
Yes.
Collier, Gardner,
Yes.
Smith,
yes.
Yes.
Did you have something else besides that, Ernest? We got you on the agenda up here, and we skipped over you because you wasn't there.
Oh, you're looking at, yeah.
On the, as far as Mr. Mann goes?
We just have you on here, and I'm not sure.
The only other issue we have outstanding with Mr. Mann is the land lease that we terminated. They filed a motion in their bankruptcy case to assume that, and we have a hearing scheduled January 7th. It was scheduled for earlier this month, but it got moved. So I don't know if it'll happen on January 7th. Court cases keep getting moved because of COVID, but as of now, it's set for January 7th. We're objecting to it, obviously, but unless you direct me otherwise, so.
Would you mind sticking around on this other item? I know you had a part in it. Okay. Okay. Any other question for Ernest? On the activity report, Wyman?
Still got a sizable amount of cash in the bank, and the revenues are still holding up pretty good for what we're going through right now.
Is that it? It shows here you were going to present the charitable donation agreement. So,
Am I presenting it or are you presenting?
Well, I can
No.
start.
I just figured somebody might have a question, so I'd walk up.
We've basically got a charitable donation agreement that Ernest Cape drafted for us, that Bill has seen and agreed to, where he's agreeing and cover what we would normally charge for a land lease if he was building a hangar on our property.
So I know it's difficult to project increases, but how would we handle any significant increases on insurances, taxes, that type of thing over a 30-year period. We locked into the 500 for 30 years, and worst case scenario goes up 10 to 15%. We cover that.
I thought we didn't put a provision in the lease for it. Pardon me?
I said, excuse, I didn't hear what you said.
Talking about additional cost over the 30 years and the cost increasing. We didn't put a CPI in there, which we could put a CPI increase on the rent every 5 years or 10 years, whatever the commission.
A review to make sure that we're still equal across the board on fees.
So let me ask, are you doing that for any other tenant now?
I believe we go into, don't we renegotiate rates every few years?
Hangar rent increases.
Well, that's for, your hangar rents that you own, I understand that, but on your 30-year land leases, 'cause that's what we're really talking about, is the land lease. All the other contracts that you've ever presented to anybody else that I know of have just been a blanket 30-year lease agreement.
We don't carry insurance on them either.
I understand that, yeah. And I believe that the writing in it says that the land lease includes the insurance.
They included
And
that in
taxes.
the calculation.
So I automatically would assume that that would mean if it did go up, that they would be assumed in there. My concern is not paying for the property tax or fair value insurance, but a judged increase every 2 years, every 5 years could be at your discretion. You could come in and say, hey, I want to increase it $12,000 a month now. And then suddenly I'm out everything
If we
based
put-
off of what a board would decide.
If we put an increase in there, it would be tied to the CPI increase, so it wouldn't necessarily be at our discretion.
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure that it's, it's fair and equitable for all concerned, and it's consistent with everything else that you guys have done over the last 80 years with everyone else. So,
Well, no, that lease agreement would come after the,
yeah.
after this other charitable donation agreement. This, I've looked at this with this in mind. We have a standard for leasing land, or put a land lease on for someone to build a hangar. And if you look at what we envision and what's happened in the past, we set aside a partial land, whether it be a lot or a partial, and say, you can come build your hangar, whatever it costs, and the only thing you're gonna owe us is a lease on the land for 30 years. And then it becomes property of Springdale Airport.
Right.
Now, that's not what this is. And I could be wrong, but 700,000 seems like a lot for that hangar.
That's your insurance policy. That Jeff Mann's
We
issue
don't
doesn't happen
do-
again.
We're not in the insurance business.
All right, so wrong word.
But what
That's a
I'm getting at-
guarantee for the
I don't
Springdale
have-
Airport
I don't
Commission.
have a problem world of setting aside this lot for Bill to go build a hangar on,
Right.
like we've been doing in the past. But when we offer our position to give someone a donation, a tax, and that will be, you can argue what that's for or anything, but it appears to me that it's for to get a tax write-off on a $700,000 donation. I'm sure you would use that.
Well, of course.
Yeah, but that should not be any of our concern, what
Right.
his purpose behind the donation.
Tell you why it's a concern to me, because we're setting a precedent. And then we become a tax dodge for people. Now, that's the way I see it. And we've never entered into an agreement to where the basis of whether it flies or not is based on a donation for that individual. Now, people can make a donation to the city anytime they want to, earmark it for whatever they want to, but it becomes property I mean, the city elects to how to spend it, but we're not getting, as I understand the way this is written, it doesn't matter what that hangar costs. Let's say it costs $300,000 or $350,000. Then the balance of that goes back to you or Bill or his company, and what he does with it, that'd be his business. But it'd go back as profit, I imagine, or however. I don't know how it'd be earmarked. But that's the way I see this, and if we do this, we're gonna set a situation where I can see where anybody would want to do this if they had some money they want to shelter. That's just my interpretation of this document. Ernest, am I saying anything wrong or right?
There's several ways to do this.
I mean, legally speaking and language speaking, there's several ways that you could do this, perhaps to accomplish what he's wanting to accomplish. You're right, the way that it's written does state that there's a $700,000 donation, and then it says that the city would endeavor to enter into a contract for the construction of the hangar with a maximum price of $700,000. It doesn't set the price at $700,000. If it comes in at $300,000, I mean, it is unclear what happens to the rest of that money. So, you know, you can.
Well, I can
you have an
misspoke.
option
I
of tying
assumed
it
it
to
went
the.
back.
You have an option of making the donation equal to the cost of construction if you wanted to. I mean, we've kind of, or you could have him build the hangar and his donation is he doesn't bill us for building the hangar. That's a donation as well. So there's several different ways that you could accomplish the same thing that might be a little clearer, because I know he stated I drafted this. I was given a draft that someone else prepared, and I made some changes that I thought made it a little more clear, but there are still some unanswered questions, such as, what if the hangar only costs $350,000? What happens to the other $350,000? It doesn't really address that. So I think that's a legitimate question to ask if that's the question the chairman's asking.
We figured taxes on this thing, do we figure it on 700,000 or do we figure it on a smaller amount?
It'll be figured on what the tax assessor assesses the building at, but I've calculated it on 700,000.
586 would include the 700,000.
Includes the property tax rate for a $700,000 hangar.
Okay.
So there's should be a margin there between what this.
So we don't have an estimate on the hangar itself. We don't know at this point what the cost is.
We're still working on it right now. It'll be a pre-manufactured or pre-engineered metal building. Those range in cost depending on the size, the height, and everything else. The doors, got certain prices anywhere from 57 to 75,000 right now. Then of course electrical, plumbing, things of that nature. So it could easily go 250,000. It could go 350,000. So.
When we build these things, do we have a standard that we have?
We don't have anything to do with the construction of the land lease hangars. Well, that's up to the owner. They simply just come in and lease the land and design and build as long as it meets with design standards. Then they can build whatever they want and put whatever amenities in it. See, we don't know what the interior of this would be. We don't know anything. We don't even know what the cost. That's the first thing. And I would suggest that we don't vary from our standard policy of allowing people to come in and build on these lots, because we've got the lots and they're valuable lots, and there's certainly a market out there for it. And I don't understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's all speculation on my part, but I don't see why, if apparently as I'm reading this, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, that the donation is tied to this being acted upon and agreed upon before the first year.
Exactly right. And
that's what leads me to believe it's more of a tax situation than it is anything else.
I'm sorry, that was never, without a question, that's exactly what it was for. And the point of the donation is that normally a person in the present circumstances would build a hangar, and after 30 years you would own it. In this case, you're going to own it right away. That's it. I don't care if it's $300,000 or $500,000. The point is, I wanted to be able to gift it to you now and not 30 years from now, but not giving away any of the benefits that go along with having a hangar at the Springdale Airport.
Bill, let me
Over
stop
30
you.
years' time, I would get to depreciate that building. If I kept it, I still get to depreciate the building, but it's over 15 to 30 years instead of 1 year.
Let
So-
me stop you right there, because if that becomes our hangar, then we can lease it for the going rate of a hangar. In this case, we're just leasing the ground.
Correct.
Yeah. So, that's what I'm saying, it's so,
But you're not having to wait 30 years to do that. I can build it the normal way and depreciate it, 1/30th for the next 30 years and be in the same scenario. I'm offering to you to build you a hangar right now, and so you can start your project and finish your project so you can get grant money from the state. The benefit for me is I get to have a tax deduction this year.
yeah.
Now, it's a win-win for both parties. If you guys want to go and get your project started and get grant money from the state, I'm here to help you. The benefit for me is I get to have a tax write-off and the use of the hangar for the next 30 years, which I would anyway.
We're way down the road from even getting the paving out there, so we're into next year, before we could even start building a hangar. The engineers are working on it right now and will be submitting to the state, as you know, but again, if we do this, we're setting a precedent to where that will be the norm.
It's not a bad norm if you're trying to build hangars in your airport.
I don't think you're locked in, but you've got a land lease under the traditional in progress now. So we've already got a land lease, so we just have two different options.
My question is, why is the donation so much more than what the cost of the hangar's gonna be? And
Well,
that-
keep in mind that,
A
we will be
question-
billing you $700,000 for it.
A question that Ernest brought up, what's gonna happen to the rest of that money?
You're going to be billed $700,000 for this hangar. So it's coming back to Woody's Construction.
I see.
Woody's Construction then in 2021, if that's a profit, obviously it will
So
be,
that's what
we'll be
you're-
paying taxes
So
on
that's
that
what
in
you're saying-
2021.
That's what you're saying the hangar's gonna cost? When in,
That's what Woody's Construction will bill you, yes.
okay.
So
We don't, let me stop you.
Sorry.
We don't have the option to act like we're the owner of the land or anything else after that. In this sense, we can't go out for competitive bidding or anything on that hangar. See, if it was a $700,000 donation and we had it in the bank, we'd go out for competitive bidding on it. And it might be $250,000. Then we would have the balance of the $700,000. And that's the way I understand donations are done to municipalities. And there's people who want to donate millions of dollars to cities and things of that nature. But once they make the donation, that money becomes property of the city. And if their project costs less or more than what the earmark was, then they'll adjust accordingly. And it,
We receive donations in other departments that have restrictions on them, on what it can be used for.
and you return the donation back to the donor, and he goes and builds the project. Has that ever happened?
No, we're not returning it back. We're going to contract with him to build a hangar for $700,000. The difference between what the hangar cost and the $700,000, he's got to report his income.
Well, I'm missing something here because I've always felt like the contract should be realistic. And, that may just be me, but, again, this is what we have before us, is we're going, Bill is asking us to accept a donation of $700,000. And then he's gonna go build the hangar with his construction company for whatever the cost. If it costs 1.5 million, then he's gonna have to eat the rest of it. If it costs 350,000, he's gonna recoup that. We're gonna send it back to him. And I feel like it could be written more in line with what we have been doing in the past. And,
See a copy of the estimate on what it would cost to actually
Yeah, that won't even be done until January. Right, the large scale was completed. Yeah, you're still getting bids for your paving and things like that. We won't be able to even be ready until you guys have everything finalized on your end for the large scale development. But I would still estimate somewhere between $250,000 to $300,000 is what my numbers are coming in so far at. The electrician's going to be minimal. The concrete's going to be pretty fair amount of labor, but the building of the building itself probably is going to run about anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000 to build the metal building. So all of my numbers, depending on which companies we go with, we still have bids out ourselves for the metal. It's going to be anywhere between $250,000 to $300,000 is what I'm guesstimating. But it's going to be pretty close.
I can see where we would.
And that'll be my cost. I'm sorry. That's my physical cost. So you get a general contractor to go and do that. General contractor is going to add 35% onto that, and then all the other fees of architectural fees and other things. So you're looking at another 50% on top of that. So it could easily go up to $400,000 if another general contractor did it, but that's wholesale costs from my company.
I can understand anybody accepting a $700,000 donation, but to turn right back around and give it back, and they simply use it, in my opinion, I mean, I'll say it right here. It depends to me like that the reason for donating this is for the tax advantage, and then he gets it back. So I've never been able to do that. I mean, it sounds to me like. Huh?
The Airport Commission receives the same thing that they would receive if it was a land lease.
It's not so much how you, that makes my point, but the fact that we become a vehicle for that, we become a player in that, we become a tax shelter for people, and they can use us. We can have someone come in next week and say, we want to donate you $1.5 million. We're going to build a $200,000 hangar, but we need it this year. We need it before the first year. Okay, so that's where that's exactly what's is here in front of us today. And the question is, as Ernest says, there's nothing, we're not doing anything that wouldn't pass muster if we accepted it, I don't think. That's what I'm saying, but do we want to take that role? Do we want to be that project? We're setting something in motion here that will be done the rest as long as this airport commission exists, in my opinion. And we have a vehicle for you to build that hangar out there and own it for 30 years. We have that. And it's a fair deal. It's done all over the United States. It's done by airports everywhere.
This process is also done in airports all across the United States. This is a process, and I hate to say this because I'm trying to remember the name, what it's called. Mr. Kate, maybe you know, but it's demunization of a property or something of that nature when it's gifted to the state or to the city or to any government entity. So you get your full tax write-off that year. And it's done all the time. That's where this idea came from many, many months ago, and it's one that Jeff Mann was using whenever he was building those over there. But Jeff Mann failed because he borrowed and leveraged himself out. That's the reason why we said we're not going to be in that situation, and to prove that, we're going to grant even more money up front to show we're going to pay this, get it done, and the city will not be out a dime. We will be out for the time that we don't get to use our money. But at the end of the day, you still get exactly what you're hoping to accomplish in your development area. I get exactly what I want to accomplish, which is a hangar. The added benefit is you get to start your project, and I get a tax deduction. Without that tax deduction, it's not worth it to me. I can move on and go do something else. But I do like Springdale. I have all 4 of my airplanes here at the Springdale Airport. And we need one hangar for all of them, and we had this project came up. Mike had presented it to me. We were looking at some other options, and I thought, hey, this would be a great way that I can show partnership with the Springdale Airport and help you guys get something going. Yes, there's absolutely a benefit on a tax benefit for me. Not once have I tried to hide that. That's the point. And with that tax benefit, you get a hangar. And you get to start your project and start your project now and show quick progress on something that your airport commission has already voted to approve and move forward with.
Already adopted a policy very similar to this same deal. When we had to do the revenue study on the through the fence hangars years ago for FAA, they required us to adopt a policy whereby we would have a method to obtain ownership of those hangars on the east side of the runway. In that policy, it states that if any of those property owners want to donate that hangar to the airport, we would lease it back to them at a reduced lease rate for a period of time. Very similar, except instead of donating money, they would donate a hangar and then lease it back at a reduced rate, but it would become owner of us. We adopted that policy and provided it to FAA, so that's very similar to the deal that he's asking for.
Do you currently rent a hangar from us?
I rent through Summit Aviation. We have, we call it Tommy Lee's hangar. Number 11. We have 3 planes in number 11, and the Mooney is, help me out, True Track and Honeywell leased one.
The only reason I ask is if that opens, if it would open up more hangar space for us to lease to somebody else, because I know we got a list.
Yeah, we had this hangar in the works anyway, you
No,
know.
I'm talking about if he moved his planes out of one that he's already leasing and then put it into, all 4 into one building, then there's 4 other spots out there that we can lease somewhere else. But you're doing it through Southern, not through
Well,
us.
there's one that is still painted blue. How's that? It's the one, I don't know where, it's not too far. It's like 2 aisles over from Tommy, number 11. It's in the row,
13?
electric doors,
13?
power doors, that, it's bifold doors. Anyway, yeah, it's in one of yours. I have a Mooney over there in one of yours, kind of. I'd like to have my Mooney back. True Track.
I was just looking at, we would open up another slot for other people to start moving. That would shorten the list, because don't we have 40-something people on the list of waiting?
60.
60 now, okay. Shortens the list.
I agree with you 100%, but still, yeah, we're setting an example of something.
So,
that
Ernest, on a one-time, non-citable, non-binding agreement, has that got any weight anymore these days? One-time, non-citable, non-binding agreement, we went into something like this?
I don't understand your question.
That, because he's concerned about us setting a precedent, well, even though we set it up in the opening language of this statement, that this type of agreement is a one-time, non-citable, non-binding, over a period of time.
I have to apologize, I don't understand the terms you're using, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I don't know what non-citable is.
okay. I've used it 100 times in labor negotiations and that type of thing, where it is my actions that I'm doing right now cannot be counted on as me doing the exact same thing later on.
You know, you always run a risk anytime you do anything, that
Yes.
somebody else is gonna come in and say, you did it for them, do it for
Yep.
me.
Yep.
So, I don't know if that
Bill's
answers your
already
question
said
or
that to
not.
us
but-
about-
Yep.
He's already mentioned that earlier in the conversation, that other leases weren't required to do what we were asking him to do, so.
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, as far as donations go, I can say the city gets donations quite often. We got a donation earlier this year for the museum to buy a duplex. We got a donation of some stock for the city to buy some property on Park Street. But I think what Chairman Johnson's saying that makes this different is we're not then turning around and giving them the duplex back or giving them the property back. That's what makes this different. We get donations all the time, but they're based on, they're earmarked, as he said, that where we use that to buy something. And it's a little unusual. I don't know that I've seen one where someone wants to donate something that's far up and over and above what it actually costs to build it. Does that make sense? I think that's where the heartburn's probably coming from. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but there may be some other accounting things that are done to explain that. I don't know. But just from a historical context where we get other donations, sometimes people just donate money to the city and we use it wherever we want to. Other times they give us a donation, but it's for a specific purpose. If he gives us donation, the way it's written is this donation is in a certain amount, and then it is for a specific purpose, but it doesn't, there's no, it's kind of loose on the back end, would be the best way I would put it. That, is it really a $700,000 hangar? I don't know. If he says it costs $250,000 to build it, but we're giving him $450,000 back, I mean, there may be other ways to account for the $450,000, I don't know. But that's what makes this one unusual, because the way I think we've always done it, maybe is you get a cost estimate, and he agrees to make a donation for that amount. I mean, maybe it's not, but that's always been my experience, but Wyman probably knows more about that than I do. And I went to law school, so I didn't have to do math, so.
Are you comfortable with this?
I have some unanswered questions, but I have to rely on the accounting wizards. To me, like I said, if somebody gives you $700,000 for building a hangar that's only worth or costs $300,000 to build, how do you account for that other money? And that may be something Wyman can answer, but I don't know. That's my unanswered question, and I do fear the next person coming in wanting to do that. Oh, I can get a $400,000 more tax break if I do this. It just, I don't know. I've never seen it done before. Maybe it has been done, but that's my unanswered question. I don't know the answer to that. Usually a donation is tied to a specific, if it's tied to a specific purpose, it's either applied towards something that costs more or it covers the entire cost, but I've never seen one that goes over that, if that makes any sense.
So
That's what makes me uncomfortable, but that's just because I don't completely understand it, because I know there's some accounting theories that come into play, over 30 years, what's the value of that? And that's not my purview on that. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but.
It appears to me, the reason you want a hangar is put an airplane in, or as an investment. And we need to talk about that also, the 100 by 100 hangar, you can store up to 4 airplanes in it, depending on the size of it. We're short of hangar space for us to lease. And I think you alluded to that. And we have a real good opportunity to run this on the program we started on and get that hangar. It belongs to us, and we lease it out. As far as money coming out of our treasury, we're spending money that we're eligible for from the aeronautical entities of both feds and state. So therefore, it costs us, we're spending our eligibility, I guess, for funds would be a good way of putting that. But we would still have a hangar that we could lease in to 4 different people. And we would be getting the lease money back in our treasury. In this scenario, we're going to be paying, we're not getting anything up front. We're not getting one dime up front. All we're getting is $500 a month. And for 30 years, that hangar's going to sit there generating revenue one way or the other for somebody. It's not going to be us. And then we are supposed to be able to cover what our expenditures are with that, the 500 plus whatever, plus with an escalation clause. To me, we're giving up some prime property to build our own hangars on. That man property over there, it, as Bill alluded to, it died. But it was never set up like this to begin with. It was set up on the program that we've had, and still think it's a good program, where Bill could go over there on this lot. We're not saying you can't, even though it's prime property, and build his hangar. And he can stay in it for 30 years based on the ground lease. And it probably, I guess some people would say it's the same thing, but I don't understand why it isn't a clean contract like that instead of asking us to go above that in order to return tax donations back to an individual. I just don't, I'm from the old school, and I wouldn't make a good politician because I don't see us putting ourselves in that position. I don't think it's right to the community, to the taxpayers. We do have a good product out there, and we ought to take advantage of it. It ought to be us taking advantage of it rather than somebody else. That's my opinion. And I know that's hard, but that's the way I see it, just simple.
My CPA and the state's largest law firm would disagree with you. So Mitchell Williams is our law firm. They're the ones who put this together. They only have about 400 attorneys in the state. Half of them are clerks for the Supreme Court of Arkansas. They're the ones who put this together. It's perfectly legal,
Now, wait a minute.
perfectly right.
They put this together. Do you have the documentation for that you could bring in and show it to them?
Mr. Kate, where did you get the letter from? From our attorney, Casey Lawson from Mitchell Williams? So, this wasn't, I didn't put this together. I know what I wanted, but.
I don't know, regardless where it came from, I'm reading what's presented to us here today, and it's only my opinion. I'm not speaking for the rest of the commission up here. I'm just telling you that's my opinion. And yes, I'm making a case, but I'm telling you, I've been out there at that airport since 1972, which is 28 years. 48 years, okay. I'm sorry, my math's wrong. Okay, well, 30 years, I'm sorry, my math.
So I think we've just proven that we're not supposed to listen to you on
I'm not
math
as
issues,
old
right?
I'm not as old as I thought I was then.
Older than you thought.
I thought I'm older. Anyway, I know what's happened since I've been there. Now, in the 40 years, like, I've got a gas ticket there at the office. I paid 53 cents for Avgas when I started flying off that. So there's going to be an escalation over the next 30 years. And even our hangar rents are going to be double or whatever. And frankly, I wish we could build on every parcel we've got out there ourselves. I wish and then keep it for the hangar rent. As James says, we've got a waiting list. So I think we could get the thing built and have tenants in there and go do another one and go from there. Or we could let Bill come in there and build on the ground lease program we got. I think that'd be fair, and he would have the advantage of his depreciation, which is fair, and I think we could move right on down the road, and we wouldn't have to defend this or the next commission defend it down the road, because it's going to come up.
Keep us moving forward, I would make a motion that we accept the charitable donation agreement.
Pardon me, what was your,
Motion that we accept the charitable donation agreement.
this agreement?
Yes, sir.
The motion is that we accept this as written, this donation agreement. We have a second.
I would like to see a CPI factor included in this document to try to cover us,
Lease agreement.
or in the lease agreement, whether that's down the road, but just as a comment, I would like a clear understanding that we're not locked into this $568 a month for the next 30 years.
If the first one was,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
if the first one
In the
would have
lease agreement,
passed,
right.
that would have been my second one, that we accept the
Yeah, I think
lease
it's
agreement
two
with a
different- I think
modification
it's
every
two
3 to 5 years for adjusting based off of
In your
insurance
motion,
rates and everything
say
else.
You accept it provided we put a clause for a CPI increase in the rent over 5 years.
Well, yeah, that would be, if the first one's got to pass before the second one can be even brought up, as far as I'm concerned.
If
Yeah,
there's-
and I have no problem with that, obviously.
If there's no second, I guess it'll die, the motion dies. Michael, second.
All right. Have a good day, gentlemen.
Okay.
I suggest you seriously consider repealing your land lease policy, because what we would have gotten out of this is exactly what we're providing out of the land lease policy. Someone
I
comes in
didn't,
with
I
lease the
didn't,
land.
I didn't get the gist.
What the airport would have received out of this deal is exactly the same thing we would get out of a land lease. And if someone else comes in, we're setting a pattern that we're not agreeable with this mathematics for the airport, so we need to look at amending or repealing our land lease policy.
I agree with you, Wyman, but to me, as I've said all along, it's not that. It's the amount of monies that we are covering for
Right,
individuals.
Right, but we're not
For a tax shelter for an individual, and I don't think
We're
that's
not
our
the
job.
IRS, and it's not our responsibility to regulate.
As commissioners, we feel like it's moral or not.
Right.
I feel like it's a moral thing for us to do.
I didn't want to say that, but I can't do it in my mind, but
If he would have come in with a $400,000 donation, something considerably less, I'd like to ask how we would have looked at it in a case like that. Why, I agree, why does it have to be 700,000?
I think you could tie the circle together more easily with that. You know, it's still against what, it wouldn't be the same as we specify, but if it coming in there at cost, what you would have to do anyway, and he's just saying, hey, I'll build it for you. All in the world we're waiving is the competitive bidding on it.
Well,
Waiving that, and which probably would be looked on favorably.
well, and it is donated revenue. It's not tax revenue. It's not government. It's not state revenue or city revenue. And all of the rules, everything that I follow on the DOT and the FTA, if it is cash in hand, none of the bidding or competitive bidding rules need to apply because it's not federal government and federal or state government mandated money where it has to follow certain procurement rules. So, I mean, I had absolutely no problem with this because it's not citizens' money, it is private money. And the fact that there's no open bidding on it, if it can be tied based off of a donation, that's why I had no problem with the bidding process or the lack of bidding process.
I want to just say this, and I want to pass this on to the commissioners, because this is something I was told in a meeting in Fort Worth early on when I became a commissioner, and one of the topics was talking about what you can do and what you can't do and receive federal funds.
Right.
This was FAA, it wasn't state, but I'm sure it applies that way. And like they told us, you know, yeah, there's a fine line there. You have to use your judgment on this. But if you ever have something before you that seems like you're taking federal funds, which that airport is federal funds.
Yeah, but that isn't.
Huh?
That was not federal.
No, wait a minute. But you're using that facility that's built with federal funds in order to enhance and enrich an individual. That would be like giving somebody a hangar for free or something like that. So, you know, so we would go up there and we would use federal funds to build a hangar. And then we'd say to our buddies over there, come on over here, you know, we'll just let you stay in here for free. That is a no-no with FAA. And I'm sure they don't go out there and police and monitor every bit of that, but that's what we were cautioned about. Hey, we are sitting here and we have funds available for you, but treat it, you know, with reverence or whatever. Just
Right.
don't be passing it on to the individuals. And I have seen in the past where I feel like that individuals have enriched themselves to some degree out there, you know, just because it is that airport. And we might get lax sometimes because it's if it was coming out of our back pocket, we probably wouldn't do some of the things we do, because that's just tax money. Well, I don't look at it that way.
You don't think there's a substantial tax advantage to an individual leasing land at the airport and building a hangar and doing accelerated depreciation on it?
There is, but when you go over and above what is normal, and when this is obvious, that you're given, I would assume a 50% tax break right there on 700,000 would be 350,000. And that would be enough to build a hangar. That's a good deal. It's a deal I'd like to have anywhere, you know. I wouldn't propose it because I wouldn't think it was a fair deal. But I guess I've said all I need to say about it, but.
The commission has the final say. I just have to disagree with, I think it's not our business to get involved in their tax situation and to make a decision based on what we anticipate their tax situation is. I think we should look at the impact and what affects the airport commission. And this is very similar to the deal that we adopted for the accepting donations of hangars on the east side 15 years ago.
So what if, instead of 700,000, we just got a $1.5 million donation, and it was gonna cost us 250,000 to build that hangar? Is there any difference in that?
Well,
That's where I'm at.
we don't know what it's gonna cost to build the hangar.
We know roughly, you told us.
Right.
We know
But-
roughly what it is.
If we're getting involved in his tax situation, he's gonna have to pay the taxes on that difference anyway.
On his donation?
No, if the difference between what we pay him and what the hangar costs, he's gonna have to report his income. So he'll only defer over the 30 years the actual cost of the hangar.
Tax benefit for the, by the end of the year.
Well, he'll get it from one year to the next year. That amount of money, the difference between the 700,000 that cost the hangar, he'd be able to delay tax on 1 year, and that's it. Cost of the hangar, have to recover his income over 30 years.
Well, we've rode this horse
Right.
probably long
We
enough,
we
so.
beat it to death and
Oh,
time to move on.
yeah, it's time to move on. So we'll go to Garver. That it was you back there behind that mask.
It was, I was
His
sneaky.
whole game
Thank you,
plan has
Mr.
just
Tate.
changed.
Didn't know anybody calling on me, so I hid. Okay, so Greg's going to pass out some information. As a reminder, we recently opened bids, actually it was Tuesday of this week, on what I'm going to call the site work around the first possible hangar in this ultimate 4-hangar development area. That site work included all the paving for the apron in front of the hangar, the taxiway leading to the parallel taxiway that we're tying into, all the utilities, water improvements, electric improvements, fencing improvements, and then also a driveway to come in behind this 100 by 100 hangar. And so we bid all that site work. Those bids opened on Tuesday of this week. We got 2 bids on the project. APAC was the low bidder at $452,000 for all that site work. And so we pulled that together. Obviously, the thinking was that we would then go out to the state for a grant or multiple grants to get that site work complete, which that's what you have in front of you today are those grant applications. The cover page that has the green text on it, you may want to look at that first. Looks like this.
Right here.
Yes, sir, you got it. This is a summary of the bids effectively and how you could get grant money to get this work complete. So to maximize the possible grant funds, we would recommend trying to get 2 state grants in January, both an 80-20 grant and a 90-10 grant. We're effectively breaking up the site work into the pavement stuff and then the utility stuff to try to maximize your grant dollars. If we do that, we can get $400,000 of grant funds, which would leave the city of Springdale's share at $131,000 to complete the site work, which would give you everything you need to where someone could then enter in a land lease to build the hangar there, or if you wanted to go build it yourself, you could do that too. It would be at your option of how you wanted to handle that area. If for some reason we can't get 2 grants from the state, I at least wanted to show you what it would look like with just a single 50/50 grant, which is a $250,000 cap. That obviously would take your share up significantly to $281,000. That's why we want to try to get 2 grants if we can to get this work done now. And so that's what we have before you today is basically those 2 grant applications. Those would have to be submitted to the state by the end of the month to be on their January commission meeting. So one other just point I wanted to mention, because a lot of talk about numbers recently. We did publicly bid a hangar in Siloam Springs 2 years ago, 100 by 100 hangar. $600,000 was the cost of that hangar, just FYI. It had a tall door, 27-foot door. I'm not sure what he was trying to put on his hangar, but I was a little surprised with the numbers. Of course, you're publicly bidding, that's going to increase cost, and then also, I don't think he was looking at profit too, but just keep that in the back of your mind. If we were to go bid the hangar, I would expect about 60 cents a square foot. That's what I've seen publicly bidding hangar facilities. So.
Just a metal structure.
Metal structure, yeah.
Less the door. What is it, less the door?
Say that again, sorry.
What are you saying, less the door?
What I was saying was that the door at Siloam was a 27-foot door. That's a pretty tall door. I'm not sure what size door he was looking at. It may have been much smaller. Also, is it powered? Is it sliding? The door is one of the most expensive pieces of the building. So,
So what are your thoughts on the 2? Submitting the 2, what's our chances?
yeah, I mean, our recommendation is going to be submit both of them. Your chances in January are better than they're going to be any other point in time. We'll know what their revenue was here in a couple of weeks for the last 2 months. They always skip December, so they're going to have 2 months of revenue in January. I'd love that if y'all had someone with the land lease or ready to go to build, because we'd say that in the letter. That's how it's drafted right now, but we're going to have to change that to say we don't have a land lease ready to go. I think that would help your case probably. We do have the bids for 120 days though, and so we opened them last Tuesday, and so we basically have 3 months worth of meetings we could try to hit. We did that strategically, just not knowing exactly how it was going to play out, and so if we don't get in January, we'll try again in February, try again in March. If we get to March and it's still a no, maybe we come back and say, can we get a 50-50 if we can't get 2 grants? But of course, it increases the share significantly. Not sure what the financial impact is on the airport or if you have to get money from the city. But we have some options at that point to start considering. The state does roll over in June, and so you'll be, this would use both your 90-10 and your 80-20 grant this fiscal year. Those grants would become available again to you in July of next year. So if you wanted to build a hangar yourself, you'd want to probably look at July to get a grant, sometime after July to do that.
You need authorization from us to go ahead and make these applications?
I believe we do, and Wyman can probably correct me on that, but I think it's been our procedure either way. If we do or not, we've always asked for your permission to apply for these grants.
I would make the motion that you guys have the authorization to go ahead and apply for the grants.
Okay. The one thing I wanted to mention real quick, I haven't looked at the calendar yet, but usually the state meets the day before y'all meet. They're the third Wednesday, y'all are the third Thursdays, unless it's a weird month. They're usually the day before you. If we get some feedback from the state early January and says, hey, we can't give you 2 grants, we could give you 1, is that a decision we want to make today on what to do in that situation, or we just want to pass it on to February and just skip January and talk about it again then? I'm not sure if we're prepared to have that discussion today or not financially.
If that is the way it played out,
Mm-hmm.
would chances be good we would get that in the back?
Not always. Again, we were strategic with January because that is their big money month. There's a chance it could pass to February and you can make that decision in February, but it just depends on the revenue month to month. I wish I could have a crystal ball, just don't have it though. It changes every year. It's not cyclical like you think.
Did I just hear you say that because of our meeting dates, the third week causes us, the state to meet 1 day before our meetings?
Typically, the state is 1 day before you because they're the third Wednesday. Y'all are the third Thursday.
Okay, so my question would be, if we changed our meeting dates to the second Thursday, that would help in our position for applying for grants? Is that what you're saying?
It would only help you, I'd say, in this case. The grant application is due by the end of the month. And so in that situation, we always are good. It's just if they give you some feedback after you submit your grant and say, hey, we couldn't fund 2 grants, we could fund 1, will you just send us a new application? You already got one in, or just adjust your application that you have, or
We would have to
remove
wait till
one.
the next month.
Yeah, you have to wait till February then, yeah. But again, I don't know y'all's cash flow, if y'all even have the ability to make that match on the 281 work right now.
Yeah, let's go to the next month on that.
Sure.
I think we have, at least some vibes I've been getting, I think we have some cooperation on some of this.
Yeah.
That, I'll check on that. But,
And we have until the end of the month to send these grant applications in. I'd love it, Laura, if you could even get me some letters from people saying they want to build on that property. Anything we can attach to the back of these applications that shows interest in building would be great to have. I know they do look at that. In the past, we have sent in some letters. Didn't think we were going to need it for this one because we were going to have a lease in place, but if we don't, anything you can get, Laura, would be helpful.
James, anybody on that list looking at it, land lease? Okay.
We've had a few calls in interested, but nobody on our list is.
So we'll just, right now we'll proceed as we don't have.
Yeah.
And we'll go to the infrastructure and the hangar, one hangar at this point. So whatever we need to do, we need to be thinking about pursuing that. And we're on track for that, right?
On track for what? Sorry, say that again.
Get the infrastructure in there.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Yep, that's what this is going to do for you.
And then
Yep.
one hangar.
Yeah, so I guess that'd be the question to the commission now is, we didn't bid a hangar. We held off on that, just bid the site work. We have a large-scale development that the site's been approved, but not the hangar been approved. We can try to push through that hangar, or do we want to see if we can get the site done first, get that in the bag, and then can resume the hangar process? Is that what you're saying, Neil? Let's get the site, see if we can get it funded. If so, we'll continue pushing forward with the hangar. Okay. I agree with you then. So yeah, I'd be looking for a motion to submit 2 grant applications to the state. Yeah.
So what was your motion, Joel?
Give them authorization to submit the grants.
Okay, have a second. Okay, any other discussion? Roll call.
Collier. Johnson.
Yes.
Gardner.
Yes, ma'am.
Smith.
Yes.
Schoonover.
Yes.
All right, and I'm going to let Greg talk a little bit about the taxiway project while he's here.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Greg Thomas. I'm just going to talk about the taxiway project really quick. Just a reminder on everything. I say this stuff every time, so hopefully you guys remember from last time, but we're designing it this year. It's not planned for construction until fiscal year 2022. However, if funding becomes available, we are planning on having this project designed by spring so that we could construct it this year if possible. But last time we talked a little bit about how we were undergoing preliminary design with this project. That included a floodplain analysis and some additional geotechnical testing on the soils. We talked about adding some cement to the soils. Since then, we have almost wrapped up the floodplain analysis. What we have concluded is that we're going to have to apply for a CLOMR, which is a flood map revision, is what that stands for, and that's because we ended up the box culvert that we are extending that goes under the runway right now is causing a rise in the water surface elevation, and it's only a few inches, which isn't that big of a deal, but the FEMA is still requiring us to issue this revision. And so what it is it's essentially a lot of paperwork that we'll have to go through, and it takes a few months to get started and to get through the entire process, but we should be able to get through it, and in the case that we do get funding this year, we should still be able to start construction if necessary. The other item that I talked about was the geotechnical investigation. They finished their testing on the soil for adding cement content, and all of the soil tests came back good. So we're going to move forward with pavement design. It went just as we expected, so no surprises there. Otherwise, for the schedule, we're still on track to submit plans to the FAA, our 90% plans. So that's our preliminary set by the end of January, late January is what we're anticipating for that. And that'll put us on schedule to, like I said earlier, potentially be ready to receive bids in the spring. So, any questions about that? Awesome.
I did want to mention one thing. Obviously, floodplains are sensitive. From the conversations we had last year, we have talked to Mr. Baldwin in the city. He's aware of our application. This is not going to change any floodplains downtown. Everything is upstream. Nothing's downstream. So
Yeah.
if anybody asks you, we're not changing anything in downtown.
No, that's obvious. Yeah, as long as we're on the east side of the runway. So, anybody got any questions for Garver? If not, any old business? Comments from the commissioners?
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
That's a great comment.
Get well, Joel. You got a guy that's been deer hunting on us and getting hurt. And so,
I just get hurt doing stupid stuff. That's all.
well, hope you get well.
Yeah, thank you.
Fine, so, okay. Nothing else, we'll adjourn.